Hello Unigame fans, Souls-like games continue to evolve, and even though I've already covered 13 upcoming titles which you can check out via the link in the top right, there are even more in-development titles that I'm excited about and I just wanted to share them with you in this video. Let's begin with Project Exyl, one that has all the hallmarks of the genre in being a dark fantasy entry with deliberate combat. It's still relatively early on in development, hence its spot on the list, where not much has been revealed about its world and lore. However, there is a fairly active Twitter and YouTube account where this combat demo footage was taken from, looking like there's quite the variety in available weapons, which is always critical in Souls-like games. Looks pretty good so far, and I'll be keeping an eye on this. Rogue Masters is a Souls-like title insofar as the combat and dark fantasy setting, but interestingly, this is a co-op horde mode title, which is an interesting idea when combined with the combat, although it does use the very often overused asset pack for its models.
You look terrible.
Good to see you still have a sense of humour.
At this point, it's all I have left to keep me sane. So, what happened out there?
Besides the fact I took out a good number of our enemies, not much.
Ah, come on. Surely you saw something. If you don't tell me what happened, I'm not buying the next round of drinks.
Fine, but I better be top-notch L or I'm feeding you to the dogs outside.
Speaking of overused models, Phoenix does seems to be using that character pack, which is always the problem when using pre-made assets, but putting that aside, this is a Souls-like RPG set in a fantasy world, where you play as a warrior searching for a sister, where magic does factor into the combat in addition to the weapon variety. Not quite sure about the voice acting though, especially based on what's in this trailer, but it's another title to watch.
The General? What happened?
I got swarmed by 3 enemy soldiers before I got to her. Right as I was taking down the second one, the third stabbed me in the back. I blacked out, but the last thing I remember seeing was Ryan. He'd pushed his way through the soldiers surrounding Merakith and managed to attack her. He'd pushed her forces back right as everything went dark. Speaking of Ryan, what could he have possibly done this time that would force the king to put a bounty on his head? He didn't drunkenly let the chickens out again, did he?
No. Actually, he...
Do you think it's coming from the town?
It doesn't concern us anymore.
Where is the relic? There have been a number of Souls-like titles to go the sci-fi route, including Hellpoint, The Surge to some extent, and even the in-development Domen, where Lost Sector looks to throw its hat in the ring as well. The description on the store page is pretty generic, about exploring a destroyed research facility, fighting hostile creatures, collecting upgrade modules, fighting bosses and so forth, but it does look pretty polished, so we'll have to see. Moonray has quite the trippy look, taking place in a sci-fi world with seemingly many mirrored surfaces, where all the characters and enemies are faceless, which, combined with the interesting looking architecture, landscapes and melted visuals which remind me of something like Hylics, does give this game quite a unique feel. If there's one knock, I cannot really pin down a release date or window for this, where the store page states both summer 2021 and October 2022, so stay tuned to the channel and I'll let you know when it releases. Call me controversial, but I do think that 2D Souls-like titles are as much of a Souls-like game as their 3D counterparts, and in some ways, it's even trickier to get right since you do lose a dimension and plane of movement, which makes dodge rolls difficult to execute. However, in a similar way to games like Salt and Sanctuary, Watcher Chronicles looks to be another entrant in the space, having quite a distinctive art style and some impressive enemy designs. Always love a good 2D one of these, so it gets on the list. Another impressive in-development title is Project Lilith, one which may be early in development, but looks to already be nailing the vibe and feel of a Souls-like title. You are seeking vengeance on Lilith, who has betrayed and cursed you, where you battle through this dark fantasy world in order to do so. Plenty of weapon variety, from warhammers to twin swords, the action does look fantastic, where the developers note that style and flair plays some sort of role in this, and with the inclusion of finisher moves, combat does look pretty fun. There's an equipment system, crafting and magic, so all the expected elements for the genre, and as compared to some of the other titles on this list, the visuals here are very impressive indeed. Not sure if this will be the final name of the game, or if it is that early on in development, but it's definitely a title to watch. Alright, so I did cover Bleak Faith Forsaken in my previous video, but it did get a new trailer which looked impressive, which meant that I had to share.
Every path eventually leads to a cold and perpetual solitude. Eventually, even that is exhausted. Only the abyss remains, the binding thread of all matter, entropy. And though my body has felt the melancholy undulation of human misery, it is cold already. A form long eroded, as is time. Yet in the mimicry of my body, inside the lifeless crevices of my synthetic cortex, a raging crucible engulfed by the cold radiates still. The force that resists entropy. The soul.
It is one of the most visually impressive titles, with such a variety in designs and environments, even incorporating mechanical bits into the design. You play as one of the Forsaken, humanity's last line of defense against the horrors of something known as the Omnistructure. This new trailer showed off more of the combat, which is exactly what I want in a Souls-like title, where there appears to be quite a number of large-sized bosses and enemies as well, which do look impressive. Successfully kickstarted in August 2019, with the then projected early access release in September 2019, things have slipped, as is generally the case with Kickstarter titles, but it continues to look great with semi-regular updates, so not a dead project by any stretch, although it doesn't have any confirmed release window to speak of. Still, looks so good and is a title that I'm looking forward to.
When a samurai loses his master, he is required to perform seppuku, ritual suicide. They say we are men of dishonor for not choosing it. They say we are ronin. When the apparition appeared, some thought it a demon, some the angel of death. It brought with it creatures from our nightmares.
Another impressive looking Souls-like title is the samurai-focused Ronin Samurai Redemption, set in feudal Japan, but with a mythical twist, where a dark spirit is causing nightmarish creatures to walk the earth, leaving 3 Ronin warriors to save the day.
So, the local leaders turn to us. Now, we stand between the innocent and the forces of an ancient evil.
What stands out is the design of the player characters and the mythical enemies, really taking a page out of the book of Dark Souls, but I'm concerned with the glimpses of the UI shown off, which do look a little like a mobile game. Still, pretty sure that's nothing to be concerned about, but we'll have to see, but based on the theme, designs and visuals, this gets a high spot.
The Ronin. To stare into the eyes of the Reaper and say, honor could not claim my life. And neither shall you.
Characters wearing the Plague Doctor mask seems to have exploded in popularity recently, even more so than they already were, where Thymesia has a protagonist with that exact look. In the Plague-infected kingdom, play as the character, codenamed Corvus, as you wield the power of disease to take out your enemies in order to uncover the truth in your own memories. Again, a nice variety in combat with a number of different spectral weapons that you can use, from spears, swords and scythes, where you're able to transform into a raven as well, highlighting the viciousness of birds. Quite the standard, obfuscated storytelling expected for a game in this genre. I love what I see here in terms of the action, environments and especially the boss designs, taking the #1 spot. For a look at the best indie games like Dark Souls that you can currently play, check out this video and I will see you after the jump.